The well-dressed businessman accessing the building after hours seemed like just another executive working late. But office security guard Tom Matthews recognized the surveillance techniques, data extraction methods, and corporate infiltration patterns that revealed he wasn't an executive. He was a corporate spy, and Tom wasn't just building security. He was a former CIA operative whose counterintelligence training had protected government secrets at the highest levels. Metropolitan Plaza was a 40-story office complex in the heart of the business district, housing everything from law firms and consulting companies to tech startups and financial services. The kind of building where sensitive business information, client data, and proprietary research changed hands daily, making security both routine and critical. Tom Matthews had been working building security for 5 years, and in that time he had earned a reputation as the most observant and reliable security professional on the team. At 38, he possessed the kind of calm, analytical presence that made nervous visitors feel comfortable while keeping suspicious activity under scrutiny before it could threaten the building's corporate tenants. To his colleagues, Tom was the detail-oriented guard who remembered faces, noticed patterns that others missed, and had an almost uncanny ability to identify potential problems before they could escalate into security incidents. His background check had shown government service, but in a city full of former federal employees and military veterans, that detail hadn't seemed particularly noteworthy. To building management, Tom Matthews was simply the security professional who could handle complex situations involving sensitive corporate environments, coordinate with law enforcement when necessary, and maintain the professional atmosphere that high-level business required. Corporate executives felt comfortable conducting confidential meetings when Tom was on duty, and building managers trusted him to protect proprietary information without creating an atmosphere of surveillance. But what none of them knew was that Tom's government service had been 12 years as a CIA operations officer specializing in counterintelligence, corporate espionage detection, and exactly the kind of sophisticated threat assessment that modern business environments hoped they would never need but should always be prepared for. The skills that made Tom effective at building security, behavioral analysis, surveillance detection, pattern recognition, identifying relationships between seemingly unconnected individuals, weren't just natural instincts for security work. They were advanced counterintelligence techniques developed through years of protecting classified information, identifying foreign agents, and preventing corporate espionage operations that could compromise national security. As Tom conducted his evening security briefing with the night shift, he was unconsciously applying operational protocols that had been refined through years of counterintelligence work, identifying threats to sensitive information, and building cases that had prevented foreign intelligence services from accessing critical corporate and government data. Tom had been tracking the unusual access pattern for 6 weeks, but tonight was the first time all the pieces had clicked into place. It started with routine observations, a well-dressed businessman who appeared at irregular intervals, always after normal business hours, always with legitimate access credentials, and always targeting specific floors that housed the building's most sensitive corporate tenants. But Tom Matthews wasn't just any building security guard. At 9:47 p.m. on Thursday night, as he reviewed the evening's access logs, Tom saw what he had been unconsciously tracking for weeks. The pattern wasn't obvious. It required the kind of analytical thinking that came from years of identifying foreign intelligence operations. The businessman's access times correlated with when specific companies were working on major acquisitions, patent applications, and sensitive research projects. His floor selections matched the locations of firms handling classified government contracts and proprietary technology development. Most importantly, his behavioral patterns matched classic corporate espionage methodology. "Control," he said into his radio, using the calm tone that had served him well in both intelligence operations and civilian security. "I need to speak with you privately about suspicious access patterns I've been documenting." Building security supervisor Lisa Park had worked with Tom for 3 years and had learned to trust his analytical instincts completely. When Tom said he'd identified suspicious patterns, it meant he'd spotted something that other security professionals would have dismissed as routine business activity. "What kind of patterns?" she asked as they met in the security office. Tom pulled up the access records and surveillance footage he'd been quietly analyzing. "Systematic intelligence gathering designed to exploit our tenants' confidential information. This individual is conducting what appears to be a sophisticated corporate espionage operation targeting multiple companies in our building." Lisa looked at the data Tom had compiled. To her, it showed a businessman working late occasionally. To Tom, it showed a foreign intelligence operative conducting a professional espionage campaign. "How can you be certain?" "Because I've seen this exact methodology before," Tom said, then realized he had revealed more than he intended. Lisa studied Tom's analysis, then looked at him with the kind of recognition that comes from working with someone whose expertise clearly exceeds their current position. "Tom, where exactly did you learn to identify espionage operations?" Tom had been dreading this conversation for 5 years. "CIA," he said simply. "Counterintelligence Division, 12 years. Lisa Park was trying to process the fact that Metropolitan Plaza had unknowingly hired a former CIA counterintelligence officer to work their building security. The quiet, analytical security guard who had been protecting their corporate tenants was someone who had built his career on exactly this type of threat detection. "CIA counterintelligence," she repeated. That's the people who catch spies." Tom nodded. "Foreign intelligence threats, corporate espionage prevention, classified information protection, surveillance detection. I spent 12 years identifying and neutralizing threats to sensitive information." As Tom explained his background, Lisa began to understand why their most reliable security guard had always seemed to operate at a different level. The pattern recognition, the behavioral analysis, the ability to identify threats that other people would never recognize. These weren't just signs of good security instincts. They were advanced counterintelligence skills. "The espionage operation you've identified," Lisa said, looking at Tom's documentation. "How serious is this?" "If I'm right and the patterns hold, we're looking at a sophisticated foreign intelligence operation targeting multiple tenants in our building. The individual involved is likely a trained intelligence operative with connections to a foreign government, and the information he's accessing could compromise national security if it reaches the wrong hands." Lisa felt her blood run cold. "Should we call the FBI?" "We should call the FBI," Tom confirmed. "This is definitely federal jurisdiction, and if I'm right about the sophistication of this operation, they'll want to investigate immediately." But as Tom looked at Lisa's expression, part amazement, part concern about what this meant for the building, he realized that his quiet career at Metropolitan Plaza was about to become much more complicated. "However," he continued, "before we make that call, I need you to understand something. If we report this, the FBI will want to know how building security identified a foreign intelligence operation that their own counterintelligence units haven't detected. And that's going to lead to questions about my background that I've been avoiding for 5 years. 2 days after Tom's report to building management, FBI Special Agent Maria Rodriguez arrived at Metropolitan Plaza to assess the suspected espionage operation. She had been briefed on the security guard who had identified the foreign intelligence threat, but nothing had prepared her for what she discovered when she met Tom Matthews. "You're Tom Matthews," she said, recognition dawning in her voice. "Operations Officer Thomas Matthews, CIA Counterintelligence." Tom looked at her with the same steady composure that had served him through countless intelligence operations. "Former Operations Officer Matthews," he corrected. "Sir, your work on the Russian technology theft investigation is still used as a training case at Langley?" and the counterintelligence operation that exposed the Chinese corporate espionage network. That was textbook intelligence work. As Agent Rodriguez reviewed Tom's analysis of the building's suspicious activities, she found herself looking at counterintelligence work that matched the quality of anything produced by active CIA operations officers. Tom had identified behavioral patterns, traced access correlations, and documented evidence with the precision that had made him one of the agency's most effective counterintelligence specialists. "Mr. Matthews," she said, "this is exceptional intelligence work. The espionage operation you've identified represents a sophisticated foreign intelligence threat that could have compromised multiple American companies and government contractors. How did you spot this when our own counterintelligence monitoring didn't flag it?" "Because I was observing it from the inside," Tom explained. FBI counterintelligence focuses on known intelligence operatives and established networks, but this operation was using a deep cover identity and exploiting legitimate business access to avoid detection. The only way to spot it was to understand both intelligence tradecraft and corporate security vulnerabilities. Agent Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, processing the implications. "Sir, would you be willing to work with our counterintelligence task force on this investigation? Your expertise in both intelligence operations and corporate security makes you uniquely qualified to help us build this case." Tom thought about the question he had been asking himself for 5 years. "As a consultant, yes, but I want to stay at Metropolitan Plaza. These investigations take months, and someone needs to continue monitoring for additional intelligence operations while maintaining normal building security." "Actually, sir, that might be exactly what we need. Would you be willing to continue your security work while coordinating with our counterintelligence team? You'd be our eyes and ears inside the building while we develop the federal case." Over the following 6 weeks, Tom found himself coordinating a sophisticated counter-espionage operation while maintaining his role as building security guard. The FBI had confirmed his assessment. The businessman was indeed a foreign intelligence operative conducting systematic corporate espionage targeting defense contractors and technology companies. Working with Agent Rodriguez's team, Tom helped design a counter-surveillance strategy that would gather evidence of the espionage operation while protecting the building's legitimate corporate tenants. It required skills that he had developed during his 12 years of CIA service but had thought he'd left behind. "Agent Rodriguez," Tom said during one of their coordination meetings, "the subject has expanded his operation. He's now targeting 3 additional companies that recently won classified government contracts. This isn't just corporate espionage. It's foreign intelligence collection threatening national security." Agent Rodriguez reviewed Tom's latest intelligence reports. "Sir, your analysis is providing us with insights into foreign intelligence methodology that we couldn't obtain any other way. The subject has no idea he's under counterintelligence surveillance, and your position gives us operational access that's invaluable for building this case." As the investigation progressed, Tom realized that his transition from CIA operations to building security had given him a unique perspective on corporate espionage threats. He understood both the intelligence collection techniques and the corporate environment where sensitive information was vulnerable. "The subject is using social engineering techniques to extract information from employees," Tom explained to the counterintelligence team. "He's not just accessing computer systems, he's building relationships with staff members who have access to classified projects. It's more sophisticated than most security professionals realize." 2 months later, when the FBI executed a coordinated arrest based on Tom's intelligence, they disrupted a major foreign espionage operation and prevented the theft of sensitive technology worth millions of dollars. "Mr. Matthews," Agent Rodriguez said as the investigation concluded, "this case wouldn't have been possible without your expertise. The CIA would like to offer you a position as Senior Corporate Security Consultant, working with American companies to identify and prevent similar intelligence threats. Tom considered the CIA's offer as he sat in Metropolitan Plaza's security office, looking at the incident reports that had become routine over his 5 years of building security work. The agency position would allow him to use his counterintelligence expertise on a national scale, coordinating with multiple companies and training other officers in corporate espionage detection. But as he thought about what had drawn him to building security in the first place, Tom realized that his answer had been evolving throughout the investigation. "Agent Rodriguez," he said when he called to respond to the offer, "I appreciate the opportunity, but I'd like to make a counter-proposal." "Sir?" "Let me stay at Metropolitan Plaza as Senior Security Analyst, but also develop training programs that teach corporate security teams how to identify espionage threats. I can create protocols that turn routine building security into effective counterintelligence operations." Agent Rodriguez was quiet for a moment. "You want to train corporate security to think like CIA officers?" "I want to train them to recognize the patterns that foreign intelligence operatives use, so that espionage operations get detected before they can compromise sensitive information," Tom clarified. "Most corporate espionage succeeds because building security doesn't understand intelligence tradecraft. If security personnel know what to look for, we can prevent these operations rather than just investigating them after the damage is done." 6 months later, Tom Matthews was still working at Metropolitan Plaza. But he had also become something more, the developer of corporate counterintelligence awareness training that was being implemented at business complexes across the country. On weekends, Tom taught courses in espionage detection, surveillance awareness, and corporate security to building security teams. He helped develop protocols that turned routine access monitoring into sophisticated counterintelligence operations. But the most important part of Tom's new role happened every day when he walked through Metropolitan Plaza's offices and corridors, ensuring that legitimate businesses could conduct sensitive work while maintaining the kind of analytical oversight that prevented foreign intelligence services from exploiting corporate vulnerabilities. "Evening, Tom," said building manager Patricia Williams as she passed through the security office. "Everything secure tonight?" "As always," Tom replied, conducting his routine analysis of access patterns and visitor behavior. "Clean operations, legitimate business activity, no suspicious intelligence collection." As he watched Patricia return to her management duties with the confidence that came from knowing their building was protected by someone with extraordinary analytical skills, Tom reflected on how his definition of service had evolved. As a CIA operations officer, his job had been to identify and neutralize foreign intelligence threats after they had been detected. Now, his job was to help other security professionals develop the skills to recognize espionage operations before they could compromise sensitive information. The transition from intelligence operations to building security hadn't been about stepping down from important work. It had been about finding new ways to apply critical skills in service of protecting the corporate information and proprietary research that drove American economic competitiveness. Today, if you work at Metropolitan Plaza, you might notice that the security feels different from other office buildings, more analytically aware without being intrusive, more observant without being obvious, more sophisticated without being intimidating. The security staff move with enhanced situational awareness, recognize patterns that might indicate intelligence collection, and maintain the kind of analytical oversight that makes legitimate business safe while preventing foreign exploitation of corporate secrets. And if you look closely at the senior security analyst who coordinates these operations with quiet efficiency, you might see something in his approach that suggests serious intelligence training. Tom Matthews looks like a building security professional, works as a building security professional, and serves as a building security professional. But underneath that civilian role is someone whose experience with counterintelligence operations was developed at the highest levels of national security. Sometimes the most effective protection comes not from the most obvious security measures, but from the most sophisticated expertise quietly applied to civilian situations. Building security might seem like routine corporate work, but when it's performed by someone with advanced counterintelligence training, it becomes something more, a critical capability that protects American business information from foreign intelligence exploitation. The CIA's mission includes protecting American interests from foreign intelligence threats. Tom Matthews discovered that this mission could be fulfilled just as meaningfully in a corporate security office as it had been in agency operations, proving that the skills developed in service to national security can find profound application in protecting the business intelligence that drives American economic strength. Corporate security isn't just about preventing theft and maintaining order. It's about creating environments where American businesses can develop sensitive technologies and conduct classified research without foreign intelligence services gaining access to information that could compromise national competitiveness. Tom Matthews learned that this mission could be pursued through training corporate security professionals to recognize the intelligence threats that target American businesses every day. What do you think? Have you ever worked in an office building where the security seemed exceptionally observant and analytical? Someone whose attention to detail and pattern recognition suggested serious intelligence training? Let us know in the comments below, and remember to subscribe to the Veteran Chronicles for more stories of dedicated professionals who continue serving their communities with skills developed in service to our nation's security.